In exercise 1, we focused on this concept of organizing data so that we can understand it. Now, the purpose of exercise 2 is to make this whole process so much easier. Because what did you say? It was a bit tedious to have to manually filter to every single date and then have to manually add it on Excel. Let's say I wanted you to find revenue earned for 5 years. It's going to take you hours to do, right? So instead of having to spend all these hours using the filter tool, we can use the SUMIFs that's going to automate this in 1 minute. And the good news is you actually already understand how it works. So let's do an example. We have a zoo, and within the zoo, we have different colors for different animals. In our example, the question is asking how many animals in the zoo are orange. Now, if we were to use the method from exercise 1, the filter feature, we would filter to all of the orange animals and then add the amounts tied to orange. So it would be 16 plus 28 plus 40, right? Let's try to create a formula, the SUMIFs, that automates this thought process. So let's go to the gray cell, type equals SUMIFs. Now, once you type it out, Excel is going to give you instructions on how to create the syntax to this formula. And each of these instructions essentially asks different questions. So SUMRANGE is asking the question, where are the range of numbers that we are trying to add? Because we want to designate the cell location specific to the range of numbers that we are trying to add. So in this case, what do you think is the range of numbers?
From here to here.
Okay. Keep in mind that for the SUMRANGE, we always want to make sure that we're selecting actual numbers because the result is a quantifiable number. Criteria range, so let's put comma. Criteria range is asking where are the range of categories. So in this example, what would be the range of the possible categories?
From here to here.
Right, so let's select that. And keep in mind that we are also selecting categories that we might not necessarily want to include. We just want to choose the range of categories. Now, the last question is asking for criteria. What is the category we want? And what would that be?
Orange.
Okay, so let's type orange in. So it comes out as 0. And the reason is whenever you enter text in the formula, you always want to make sure to include quotation marks. So let's include quotation marks around orange. And it comes out to 84. 16 plus 28 plus 40 is 84. Now there are two things I want you to note when we approach this that's different from the example. Number one is if you look at our zoo data, there's really only 5 rows, right? 5 items. And so it's very easy to simply select the cells. But if we look at our accounting data, there are 38,000 rows. That's a lot more than 5.
Yeah.
And so using the method of what you did of kind of just dragging it down, this is going to take us literally 5 minutes, right? So an easier way for us to capture everything in these columns is just simply clicking on the letter, right? By clicking letter A, this whole column is captured.
Well, I have a question actually. When I was choosing the range of numbers, there can only be numbers because that's what you want. But here, if you select the whole column,
You would be including the row title, the actual text, right? What's going to happen is Excel is just going to ignore the title. Yeah.
Okay.
It just won't be included in the calculations, which is fine. The second thing to note is there are 2 categories in this exercise, right? In the zoo example, we only had to restrict it to orange, but keep in mind that there are 2 categories, the room charge and the specified date. So when you create the syntax, make sure to include 2 categories. Exercise 2, find revenue earned on each date indicated using SUMIFs. So equals SUMIFs. How come this pops up? Accounting data. This didn't happen in the zoo example, right? How come it pops up here?
because we're switching between tabs.
Right. Excel needs to know where the tabs are in relation to the cells. Now in the zoo, this tab label didn't show up because why?
Because it was all in the same.
It was all in the same sheet and you're working off the same sheet. But if you're trying to source it to data in a different tab, Excel is going to automatically populate this. Okay, let's continue.
So we want the amount.
Right. Clicking column K to capture everything in this column. Now the first criteria range we want to focus on is in column D, right? Because this indicates all of the different types of transactions at this hotel. But the specific one we want to focus on is room charge, because that indicates revenue earned.
Does it matter which order you do it in?
No. Now for the second criteria range, it's going to be in column A, because this gives us the list of all of the different dates for these transactions. And again, the specific one we want to focus on for criteria is January 5th. So let's type 1,516. And the answer comes out to $1,258.46. Good job, Teal.
Thank you.
High five. And that's exercise 2.